Bonnie is absolutely incredible. I first saw her about 2 weeks postpartum after meeting with another lactation consultant at the hospital I delivered, which was unsuccessful. Following our first meeting, I felt not only physically but mentally better. Without her, I would have never been able to continue breastfeeding. She offers not only knowledge and expertise in the field, but also unmatched, genuine kindness and compassion. I'm so thankful for her and will forever recommend her. That is one testimonial from a page of testimonials at bonnieknowsbreast.com about and for Bonnie Logsdon, who's my guest today. Thanks for being here, Bonnie.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
That was quite a testimonial there.
Yeah,
I've looked through some of the others, man. That's I would suspect that is very much your why.
it is. It really is. I feel emotional when I hear that
Yeah.
because I read those a lot. Like they come in a lot. People are very generous with their love and showing their love and appreciation. And I hope that I'm also showing that to them because they are in such a vulnerable state when they come to me. And it's so important. It's really top of mind. And this is how I approach all my clients with thinking about their mental health. You know, that testimonial mentioned how she felt better physically and mentally. And that is like my number one priority in the job that I do is to always keep their mental health at top of mind. We got to feed the baby because that's expected in my
Yeah.
job. And we've also got to work on a mom's milk supply if that's what she wants and that's her goal. So meeting her where she is, but keeping that mental health at top of mind is so important. So I love to hear that people feel good there when they come.
I always say with our business that people, when they give us testimonials like that, I've always struggled with compliments, like I don't take them well. And one of the ways that I've decided to handle them is I say, at the end of the day, we're going out and trying to do something as a business, like we're making a promise of some kind of value that we deliver. And there's nothing more gratifying than a person saying they received that value.
That's right. That's right. And, it feels good to hear that. But, like you said, it is my why. And I don't do it for the testimonials. I do it for them to feel that way and to leave here feeling that way for sure.
One thing I like to, and I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I'll do it anyway. It's my show.
But
Is talk a little bit about how we get to know each other. So, we always say Goodson first and foremost is a highly relational business, both inside and outside. And so my wife was a part of an organization in Louisville called Fit for Mom and for a long time. And so she worked out there and then she ended up leading some workouts and that's correct. That's where you and Rebecca met through that.
that's right.
And then we ended up kind of as couples from time to time. I think actually ended up going to Churchill Downs a few years in a row with that group, and so that's kind of how I met Bonnie and her husband, and we got to know each other. And then from time to time, she's been building this business. She said, hey, there's a couple things that I think you could help me with, and we'll get into that in a little while. But I guess the point with that, I always like to just give context as to how I connect with people, because I think I even said to Bonnie in the interview stuff that we had here, it's like everybody has a podcast today, right? So you're trying, what's different about ours, and yeah, we explore branding, but I think right now, what's one of the things kind of interesting is, we don't really go farm for like guests. Everybody that we have on the podcast, I have some kind of personal relationship with, varying degrees, of course, but there's some kind of background and history there. So, and with that, well, let's just help everybody get to know you, Bonnie. Just like tell a little bit about, where'd you grow up? Are you from here originally, and kind of what's your background?
Yeah. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went to college at Western Kentucky, which brought me to Kentucky and lived in Bowling Green for years. And then I actually moved to New York City and I lived there with
I
my
didn't know
husband.
that.
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years and we just lived our best life. And then we actually moved from New York City to Glacier National Park, Montana, which was a complete and total flip upside down
This
of
is you and Brett, right?
Yes, that's right. Before we had a child, and we lived and worked in the park for the summer season in 2013. And then we left that. We were just like trying to we thought about getting an RV and like traveling the country and doing all the national parks, but then we were like, let's just focus on one place. And we did that at Glacier, which is, by the way, the most incredible national park. If you've never been there, you got to go. And then we took a big 12-week road trip across America as we were kind of just exploring where we wanted to land next. And then we thought about landing in Nashville to be closer to my family. And then we had a ton of college friends and people we knew here in Louisville. And we just ended up like picking Louisville. And that was 10 years ago. And that's right when we found out we were expecting a baby. And so we have been here ever since. And both of us, when we moved here, I was already working in lactation, but he was always in sales, and he decided to start a new career in real estate when he moved here. And I was pregnant, and I was like just starting my private practice. I had been working lactation for like 12 years before that in community health and public health. But I had just started my private practice before I moved out of New York City. So then I was pregnant and trying to get this business going, and like really only knew my college friends. So I had to find like people, who were in the same stage of life as me. And that's where when I had the baby, I started going to these mom groups, and people started to know that I did lactation work. And that really did help me grow my business and my brand. But, I was there as a new mom struggling on the struggle bus with all the other moms.
So I'm curious, tell me a little bit about like, what was you mentioned it a little bit. What was the work you were doing before you started your private practice? You said it was public health. Like, what
Yeah,
were some, yeah.
I worked at the public health department, my first job out of college as a new dietitian. As an intern there, I was a student intern at that health department, and they put me with the lactation consultant for one of my rotations for like a
Okay.
week of being with her as mentorship. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this lactation lady for like a week? Like, what are we going to talk about? Like, surely like, it's not that much to talk about. And so she happened to have a prenatal breastfeeding class happening the week I was with her. So it was like a bunch of pregnant women in this class, and I was sitting in observing, and my mind was completely blown. And here I was, this like college graduate, newly graduated with a Bachelor of Science in nutrition. And this lady like blew my mind with what she was telling me about pregnancy and birth and labor and breastfeeding and all this stuff. And it totally just changed my life. And after that, I ended up getting a job offer from that health department at Brand River District down in Bowling Green. And so I worked there for almost 7 years. And then we moved to New York City. And I wanted to have this like, back in the day, 2010, I was like, I'm a foodie. I want to work at Food Network. I want to
Gotcha.
I'll like be a coffee runner. I don't care what I do. I'll do anything
So was
different.
that the reason you went to New York, to kind of chase this other dream a little bit?
I mean, a little bit. It was also just this love of the city that my husband and I
Sure.
had.
And do it
And
when you don't have kids, right?
that's right. We were like, what do we, what's keeping us from moving there? And we said it was fear and
Yep.
money. And if we had enough money saved, it would take away the fear. Right. So,
Yeah.
and it did. It
Good
did. So
logic. Yeah.
we saved for a year, and we quit our whole life in Bowling Green is how we kind of think about it. Like we just,
So did you meet Brett at WKU?
yeah, we did.
Okay. So he went
Yeah,
to WKU as well?
that's right. That's right.
So I got to give you a chance. So this has nothing to do with our conversation, but I guess maybe it does. Everybody I've ever met that went to WKU to this point is like such a massive fan of WKU. And I just actually took Ava to visit there a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to give you a chance to plug WKU right here.
Oh gosh, it's such a beautiful campus.
It is beautiful.
And while it's hilly, that's why we're
Tough
called the
walk.
group,
Yep.
is it's big enough to feel like a big university, but small enough to feel like you're seeing people and you recognize, and you're able to find community there. And the town of Bowling Green is just so great, and it's so diverse, and it's got a lot going for it. It's a big small town is
Yeah.
what, like,
So
and that
you're like 100% recommend, like everybody else I've run into, huh?
I really do.
Yeah.
It's a great school,
It's good.
great education, and just lots of different things to get involved in, which is super fun.
So you kind of like have this opportunity leaving WKU, and it kind of plants the seed potentially with lactation. You go to New York, and you kind of, it sounds like, had a little bit of another objective in mind. So then I'll let you take it from there. I think this is interesting because we'll probably end up spending a little more time here than normal, but I do think it's really important, and for people to understand, how do you get to starting a business like Bonnie Knows Breast,
Yeah.
and the other things that you're working on now.
Yeah. So I tried really hard. I pulled the strings and tried to make the connections that I had, which weren't that many, in hindsight. But everybody's going to New York for those similar kinds of dreams. So it's tough. It's a tough business to kind of get into. And so I had to pay the bills. So I originally got a job at Starbucks, like my first job at Starbucks. Never had worked at a coffee house before. And mind you, like I had had a career for 7 years. Like I was 30 years old at this point.
Yeah.
We were just we had enough money saved to have a cushion. So we weren't stressed out. And I was like, I'm going to go, take this job and keep applying for all these other things. And so I started at Starbucks at 71st and Broadway. And if you know anything about New York City, at 71st and Broadway on the Upper West Side, the business that Starbucks does is probably like unmatched from other locations. It's like
Just insanely busy.
insanely busy, and people are very specific about their coffee.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not fun, very much fun. These people are mad about coffee. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
calm down, people. So, about halfway into that first week, I got a call that I'd gotten a job at Williams Sonoma there at Columbus Circle. And I'm, again, big food person. And I thought, well, this is like something I could put, like start kind of getting my feet wet with that. So I took that job right away and I had the best time working for Williams Sonoma right there in Columbus Circle. It's this big, beautiful, it's their flagship store on the East Coast. So it's this big, beautiful store. And we had a beautiful kitchen in there. And because it's their flagship store and it's in the middle, in the heart of the city, they would have, all these like celebrities come. I mean, celebrities shop there all the time. Famous people shop there all the time. Plus, they have all these book signings for celebrities who have cookbooks that start, or they would do little cooking demonstrations and come in. So we'd have all these events.
Yeah.
So it was like a little bit different retail experience than maybe the typical one. And then as that was going on, I was still applying for jobs. And then I ended up getting a job at a community health center. There I was doing basically the exact same job I was doing in Bowling Green with a little more of a supervisor role where I was doing nutrition and getting to do the lactation and do some supervision. And it come to find out this location was literally 3 blocks up the street from our apartment. So I could just walk to work and had good, health insurance and all the things that feel important. So I kept my Williams Sonoma gig as my side hustle because I loved it and I got a good discount on all the beautiful things. And then I started working there. And then I was working towards my certification to be a lactation consultant. So that credential is called an IBCLC, so International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. So you have to get all these hours and do all the shadowing, do all this education. So I was able to get that through that job and then sit for my board exam. And when I did my shadowing and stuff for those hours, I started shadowing home visit private practice lactation consultants in New York City. And I was like,
Wow.
this
Okay.
is what I want to be doing.
Okay.
This is what I want to be doing. So that's how that trajectory kind of got me here.
All right. So very quickly though, y'all went to Montana for a while. So what? Tell me about that.
Goodness. Yeah, talk about culture shock, going from living in, one of the biggest cities in the world to literally having no cell phone reception. Again, this was 2013. We lived if you look at the map, it's on like the northeast or west corner of Montana, middle of nowhere on the Blackfeet Indian Reservation. And there was at that time satellite dial up and we had T-Mobile and we had no service. We had to turn our cell phones off for 5 months. And we had a regular phone in our little condo that came from the hotel and you would dial up into our apartment. It was hilarious. And I was really like, Brent was in heaven. And I was like, what have we done? This was the worst mistake we ever made. But what we found were people who came to work there from all over the world who were the age of 17 to 75. And we found really incredible community there of people who, like us, were just looking for an adventure and looking to be in nature. And it was really an incredible experience to get to live and work right there at the foot of the national park entrance and get to hike every week and got into that. We weren't hikers. We weren't any of that before we moved there. So it was wild. It was a wild thing, but it was really,
Was that
really
just another thing that you all did just be kind of like New York? Like, okay,
yep,
we want to try this too?
totally.
I just realized I was calling him Brett. I did this is a second episode where I messed up a name. Brent. I got it right.
It's okay. People call him Brett all the time.
I
He's like,
know.
it's fun. No big deal.
It's like I told Brad, I called him Brad Luttrell, but then at the end he said it's Luttrell. And I was like, I've got to clean things up here, man. The show's getting a little
Get it together.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so you end up here in what was it, 2015?
13. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you came here in 2013. And then that's kind of when you kind of started. Is that when Bonnie Knows Breast started?
Yeah. So, well, my original business name was called The Baby's Voice. And the thought behind that was like, our babies obviously don't have like a voice like we think a speaking voice, right? But they are always communicating with us and making noises and telling us what they need. And I thought that was just an interesting concept. So that was my original business name. And then about, what year is it? 2020. And I think it's been about 6 years ago now, I saw somebody had something like on social media. They had a mug that had their name on it and it said something. It said like Kelly Knows Breast or something. She was a lactation consultant somewhere out in the country. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want a cup that says that. So I contacted her and I said, "Where did you get that?" And she said, "Somebody on Etsy made it for me." So I ordered this cup and I took it to a thing with a bunch of my friends, and they were like, it has little boobs all over it, sparkly, very, very me, on brand for me. And it said Bonnie Knows Breast. And my friend was like, "That should be your business name." And I was like, "Yes, it should." Like, why didn't I
Yeah,
think of that?
that's
So
great.
it was hilarious. Yeah. And there it was.
So tell me just a practical question. Once you made that decision, how did you get like, so if you go to the website, you'll get a sense of the aesthetics of the brand that she's created, which is, all this color and all these images. Who did all that for you?
I had
Or
an
the logo and stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had an intern who was learning from me and wanting to contribute because they valued my time and were like, "How can I give back?" And I was like, "Well, it's valuable for me to teach you. Like, you don't have to do anything." And they were like, "No." And that was just right when all that was happening. And they were like, "Well, me and my partner a little bit skilled in this, so like." That was right when Canva was kind of blowing up, and they just like helped me based on kind of what I was like, I really want like it to be fun. I want it to be colorful, and they just came up with this, and it just was like, yes, that's it. Like, it was weird. I've done some other brand building with a couple other pieces of my business, and it's really hard. Like, logos, I find it's so hard, and just a lot of tools and a lot of thought have to go into it. I think it's important, but they came up with it, and it was very quick, and it just felt like the
Yeah.
right fit. It was wild.
So we talked a little bit about the way I said it was like this can be a topic I think that's challenged, like can feel tough to talk about. I guess I also said I'm a guy. So I have a different perspective, but I'm married. I have 3 daughters, so my wife's been through it. I know just from those conversations and others that this is a very important topic for women. I love this podcast is obviously all about branding. So a big part of why I love this story and what you're doing is that I just love the brand. I love that you've taken something that I think can be challenging to talk about. I remember the first few times I wrote orders for you and people saw the name and they were like, "What?" Like, because they, when you see the name in our system, you don't see the logo and the brand. So it hits them funny. But
Totally.
talk about that a little bit. I mean, like I said, just that whole idea of taking a challenging topic and making it maybe fun and approachable.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I wanted. I didn't, what I saw a lot in my niche business is a lot of people playing into like this baby idea of like baby, right? Like blue and pink, soft colors, lots of baby stuff. And that's wonderful and beautiful. And that's also just not what I felt like was fun. And like you said, I wanted this topic to be light and approachable and kind of just take the edge off a little bit of it being boobs. Like, I always say, like, everybody's got nipples. Like, some people,
That's true.
like, we all have them, but some people are used for other reasons. So, I wanted like cartoony kind of breasts to kind of like get that kind of, sexualized thing just kind of off the table here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here to help you learn to feed your baby. And people have never talked about their breast in this way before, or their breasts have never been through what they're going to go through when they are pregnant and experiencing lactation for the first time or the second time or however many times. It's always different. So I did want it to be approachable and light and I think that makes people feel more comfortable. And even though I am a clinician, I'm a medical professional, I didn't want them to come to me and feel that way like we do
Yeah.
sometimes when we go to doctors, because they're already doing all that with the hospital and, their obstetrician or their midwife or their pediatrician's office. Those do tend to take on a more sterile kind of environment. And I wasn't looking for that. And originally I did only home visits as well. So I was going into people's homes, and there's not a lot of medical providers that are doing that these
Yeah.
days. So I wanted to feel approachable as a person and as my brand, and make them, give me some trust right away, because I have to have their trust in order to help them.
Yeah, totally. Tell me a little bit about what's day to day look like. So what are some of the services that you provide and, getting more practical with it?
Yeah. So I've evolved. Like I said, I used to just only do home visits. And then I started renting an office space from someone, kind of subletting for years here in town at a therapy office. And I shared space there for a long, long time. And then about a year ago, and then with COVID, I went strictly telehealth. So that was a huge shift in my brand and my world of trying to learn how to be a telemedicine, telehealth lactation consultant. And, all of us were learning how to use Zoom and get better lighting and get better, audio and all these things that we needed. And I need to see the latch happen with the baby, right? I need to be able to hear the baby swallowing and watch the noises they're making and the movements. And if a mom is struggling with pain or discomfort on her breast, then generally I'm, examining that and checking on that and trying to help that. So that was a big challenge for moving to some telehealth. And then in the last year, my dreams have come true of having my very own office here in town. And I rent some space here off Brownsboro and Rudy Lane. And I have about 1,200 square feet where I have a clinic room. I have what I'm sitting in here is the pump bar. So I created like a whole new brand actually with the pump bar last year. And all of my pump parts, replacement parts, feeding things for baby are all on my website that you can order worldwide or nationwide, and you can pick up locally too. So this is really one of the only spots, if not the only spot in Louisville where people can come and get these kinds of supplies like right off the shelf, like and take it home with them. Target and some of these big box stores and drugstores, they carry a few things, but I carry hundreds and hundreds of things now. It's kind of gotten out of control, honestly. Like I didn't expect to be
So
like,
did you just start reaching out to companies and setting up wholesale accounts essentially?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep, started doing that and getting that going because that was what happened with actually with COVID, because when the supply chain stuff was going on and people needed different flanges or different parts and pieces for their pumps or certain bottle nipples or different things, even if they were ordering it online, it was taking a week or more to get it. And people didn't have a week to wait. They needed it yesterday. So that's when I was like, I got to start carrying some of this stuff for my clients to have on hand. And that's been a real game changer for clients to have that comfort.
So
Like,
is the
right.
pump bar is the primary? I mean, could people stop in and use the space itself to pump? I mean, is it
Oh,
just
yeah.
primarily okay? Yeah,
Yeah, they could for sure. Anybody would be welcome to come here and do that anytime.
but the
But
primary thing is to just provide the supplies needed.
yep. So like the retail supplies that they need, I do flange fitting for pump. Like your pump comes with like a standard size that nobody is that size. It's kind of like your shoe size. Like not everybody's the same shoe size, right?
Yeah.
So why would we put the same diameter of a flange in for every person's breast anatomy? Because that's not all the same. So we have sizes, from a 10 millimeter all the way up. We have like 5 different shapes. So it's like also the pump market has like exploded in the past 5 years, definitely. So there's just like crazy amounts of product out there and different pumps, different companies that have never existed before that are doing some really interesting things. And so that keeping up with that is like a whole full-time job in and of itself with the retail. But then, I'm offering office visits here. I still offer some telehealth. And then I actually hired somebody last year to help support my home visit need because I was doing a lot more office and had kind of gotten away from offering a lot of home visits. But she does home visits for me. And then my classroom, I have a third room here where I have a whole classroom where I teach classes, parent classes. And then every week I offer a new mom group called Afterglow. So that's kind of like my third brand of the group that I run. And I have a team of facilitators who facilitate the group each week. And that's a whole nother piece that is so needed for families, for new moms to come in with their babies and just be
Now,
with
are
other.
these facilitators like part of your team? Or are they volunteers?
Yeah, no, they're part of my team, and they are all mothers who have been there, done that. Some of them have little bitties, and some of them have a little bit bigger kids, but they've all kind of been there, done that. Most of them have, well, all of them have some kind of background in either mental health or doula. They're a doula of some sort, postpartum or birth, or some kind of perinatal background. So they're all qualified. It's a really beautiful space for moms to come and just meet other moms to like normalize the hard
Yeah.
that they're in and like, oh, your baby's doing that too. Like, I'm not alone out here on this island. Having that community and trying to help them build their own communities is really important to me. And that's why I have continued to run this group for 10 years almost now and facilitate that and keep it going even through the pandemic. We were sitting outside at my old location, like in the grass and the parking lot and stuff during COVID and just trying to keep it going because
Yeah.
people need it so bad. So kind of got 3 things going in the space, and then the community room can be rented out as well. So it's been a big thing in the last year for me to take on a lease and take on the overhead that's come,
Yeah.
but it's been really beautiful and really I've had a lot of growth, which has been great.
So just to help anybody listening, so it's the body knows breast side is the sort of the clinical side, if you will, or like the visits, the in home visits still, or you can do visits at your office. And then the pump bar is obviously kind of it's all the components, all the things that a mom would need to pump, and as well as somebody to help them through the process of choosing what's best for them. And then Afterglow are these groups that meet to kind of facilitate a larger community, but also some smaller, more targeted communities. Is
Yeah,
that
exactly.
right?
That's it. That's
Okay,
right.
good. So one of the things that's so interesting to me about that, and I mentioned Brad Luttrell, I said it right. We were talking a lot on the last episode I did with him about we feel like every brand out there today has got to think in terms of building community. It's not that marketing and branding is really not anymore as simple as I have a value proposition, go communicate said value proposition, to the customer. You still have to do that, but I think that the world we're living in today is that people, which is why I think, and one of the questions I was going to ask you is how you get customers, but it's like I suspect that, obviously been doing this a long time. You've built probably a large, I mean, you probably call it a fan base on some level, and then you have this Afterglow, and I would think that that becomes an engine for both the clinical practice as well as the pump bar, most likely, as well as I'm sure there's just a ton of referral and word of mouth, right?
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree that community is so important in general, I think, for any business. My business in particular, like I said, as a new mom coming into the community of Louisville, knowing no one but my college friends who some of them had kids who were older, some of them didn't have any children. As much as we had that, and they're some of our best friends to this day, I was in a different stage of life and I knew I needed to find community. So me seeking out that community of parents and new moms and trying to find the group that felt right to me and find my people felt so important. And I've kept that focus with my practice because this birth community that we're in here with lactation, birth doulas, birth photographers, different this little niche that we're all in, it's important to build that community too, because we need it as being providers in that, as trying to build that community within ourselves. But it is also a referral network for sure to help grow all of our businesses.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time networking within Louisville, Southern Indiana area for people to know that I exist and to get to know them and for them to be able to trust me with their patients and with their customers too, to refer. But also, I have been so lucky and grateful and blessed to have so many repeat clients. People do come
Yeah.
back to me because we have built a relationship and a trust with each other. I hope every time. So they find me again and again when they have babies. And that is so meaningful for me that they are willing to come back because they do trust me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you're not doing any traditional advertising, really. It's all networking and referral slash word of mouth, right?
Yeah. So that's where you came in with Goodson, because when you told me what you did a few years ago, I said, I'm probably ready for something that I can hand out at health fairs or do. I do a little bit of that here and there. Um, and some of it's just time too now because I am very busy just seeing clients every day and seeing babies every day. But I needed some kind of marketing that could be, again, fun and approachable. So I was online several years ago and I saw these pins that had little boobs on the top of them. And I was like, I need that. I was like, I don't know what this is going to cost me, but
Bonnie helped me find an edge of our industry I hadn't found before. I will say that. When
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did. So you helped me find this boob pin right here
and
that
we've done
has
them several times.
a squishy boob. Yep. That
How
rotates.
do
And
people receive those? Like when they, I mean, have you seen them out? I assume like in your niche, the niche that you're in, I've probably seen similar products, but I'm just curious how people receive them.
people love these things. They are so ecstatic and they think they're hilarious and cute, and kids love them. But what I find to be really fun is when a client is like, I'm going to give this to my husband for his office or for his desk, or he's a delivery driver or this or that. So, like,
That's
the
hilarious.
then the partners will come back to me and be like, "Oh my gosh, everybody loves your pen." And, nobody forgets that. So it's a very memorable but fun and approachable way for people to know who I am. So the pen was the thing that brought me to you. And also this little stress boob, this little squishy stress boob that was out there in the world. And we were able to brand it on the back. So I use this for my classes. I give them out when I teach my breastfeeding class and give them out at different health fairs and stuff. But these come in two different skin tones and they make me really happy too. And that people love these too. They think they're so cool.
Well, I think that, again, what's great about even just those two items, I think that they're so tied in with the brand. And so this is something that we talk about. We're in a very, I mean, you're in a highly specialized niche space. We're not. We're in a very commoditized red ocean type space. And it's very chaotic and very noisy. And, we say a lot that people don't have a product problem. They know that they can do a Google search and find more products than they would ever want to look at, frankly. And most of the ways that they're going to come across those products don't help them really make any discernment and the difference between whatever it is they're seeing. So we talk a lot about that our goal is to build a relationship first, and then based on that relationship to then go and guide them through the chaos that is our industry and find things that make sense for the brand. And, the items that you've chosen there, I think clearly tie in with the brand you've created. Some people will listen to this. They won't have the benefit of seeing the items you just showed on video, but they can go to your website very quickly at Bonnie Knows Breast and get an idea of the brand and start to get a sense of the fact that all that stuff is kind of well orchestrated is the point. And so, because our belief is that at the end of the day, clothing and items are just clothing and items, but they mean something when they're done the right way and they're strategically chosen and deployed within a business to support what they're trying to do from a branding standpoint.
100%.
And they're fun items, just like your brand is fun.
That's right. That's right. So it felt like the perfect match and the perfect fit. So much so that like I put these on the pump bar on the retail space to sell because they're like, how much are these? Can I buy these? So they're like on there. So if anybody wants to see them, they can see them. I had an order this week for multiple of these. So people love them. And what's crazy is my Google Analytics tells me that this squishy boob is like one of my top search things, like,
Really?
or like because it's called a stress boob or something. Like,
Yeah.
no, maybe that's weird, but like that's what it's showing
That's
up.
funny.
So I'm like, okay, let's put that at the top of the search page. So if people want to buy it, there it is.
I know you're working with my team on some other things too, with some of these other concepts that you have. So it's cool to see. I mean, I've been in business. It's funny. I think we'll be 10 years old in May. So it's weird. So we're both, been in business about the same amount of time. And it is not easy. I mean, I don't know if you've ever felt this way, but I say a lot, when you're a small to, not even mid-size, when you're a small business, you think you're going to take over the world in the morning. And by the afternoon, you think you need to be working on your resume. It can be quite the roller coaster. But what's funny, I think, is if you zoom out far enough and you go, wow, look how far you've come, from, Nashville to Bowling Green to New York to Glacier Park to Louisville. And now 10 years later, you go from, you're doing stuff out of your house to I'm trying to figure out telehealth in 2020. And now you have, 1,200 square foot office and 3 brands and several people involved. And yeah. And that's the story of most businesses is the long, I mean, the hockey stick sort of thing that everybody's gotten used to in the entrepreneurial community where people raise money or they just grow so rapidly. Most stories are stories of what I would call slow burns, just, not quitting, putting one foot in front of the other every day and just keep going. And I think one of the real key takeaways for me with you is I think you were clear, and this is something that I didn't necessarily do well. I've had to work on it, but I think you had a very clear why from day one. And that's super powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I try to just stay true to who I am and also remember my why every day, because like you said, the slog of the business side of being a business
Yeah.
owner, most people are the reason they got into the business, right? The expert in whatever marketing or lactation or whatever it is. And then you also have to be this business owner where you wear 100 hats every single day. And that's that's a whole nother business. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
it's like
too
a whole other
big,
job. Yeah.
a whole other job. So I've been really interested in that piece of the job in the last year or two of, learned so much over the last 10 years about processes and systems and applications that can work well for me in this business and how that, affects my bottom line and all the different moving parts of, bookkeeping and accounting and taxes and, there's just so marketing and
Yeah.
branding and social media and all the things that I've started like actually speaking about that to people and teaching people how to help improve their business. And
So talk about that. Talk about the conference, because that was what I was going to say. This is my last question is, all the things that you've experienced over these 10 years, what advice do you have for people? But you're doing something very practical about that with this conference you were telling me.
yeah, so I am starting to develop I guess, yet another brand called the Business of Breastfeeding. And we're going to host a conference here in Louisville in February of 2026. And I have a partner that I'm working on with that. And it's really just going to be a business focused conference. So, in our world, we have to have continuing education and we have conferences offered to us all the time around the world. We could go to an in-person conference or a webinar where we're going to get that continuing education that's more clinical specific. But what's lacking that I've found in my, part of the world is this business education piece because I
Yeah,
didn't
just
go
the
to business
practical
school.
parts, right? Like just
Yeah,
like the day to day, like how do you get things done?
exactly. And I didn't go to business school and most business owners didn't, to be honest,
Yeah.
right? So we're lacking that piece. So learning more about that and being able to take the time to focus on the business side of your business. We don't get a lot of that because we're so busy focused on that client facing one-on-one consultation situation. We're having to work on the business in the middle of the night, in the carpool line,
Yeah.
early in the morning and all of that because
While
we're
pumping.
yeah, or while we're busy being
Yeah.
a mom or a parent, and
Yeah.
as you know, that our businesses never sleep, so we have to keep that going, but that's a whole other side, a whole learning curve that I think people are hungry for that information and need that support as a small business owner, so I'm really excited about this new thing that I'm kinda working on right now.
To your point, we had to put on a fractional CFO at the beginning of the year. Without getting into the weeds, we just kind of found ourselves in a bit of a cash flow crunch. It's part of running a small business. It's
Sure, absolutely.
but exactly what you're saying. One thing that I think that is lacking in just the broader, I mean, I think you're saying it's lacking in your kind of niche space, but I think it's lacking in the broader business community, which is business people get together and they transact a lot of terms and phrases that they've read, and there's a lot of things said, but not much is communicated. Is kind of the way I feel about it sometimes. And so I was visiting a client, friend of mine, really working on a small project for him, and I was sitting there and I was like, man, I need help with the financial side of my business. I'm not managing it the way that I want to. And I was getting ready to walk out the door and I was like, wait a second. I was like, we've never talked about this. How do you guys manage your money? Like, who helps you manage the financial part of the business? Like, Eric's awesome. You got to call Eric. Do you need help? And I was like, yeah, I need a lot of help. And that it's very practical, but it is that and a lot of other areas. Like you're talking about like the tools, the software tools, the tech stack, the software platforms for accounting, whatever it is, the medical records you mentioned, best practice on it. And cross pollinating so that we can all learn faster instead of learning that stuff in a vacuum, which just takes too long, is super important.
It is. And the bookkeeping side for me was such a pain point. To your point, I am with you on that because a couple of years ago, it was like tax time. And, my husband owns his own business. I own my own business. We own rental property. There's like, we had all these moving parts to our taxes and finances. And we're sitting there, in the middle of the night trying to find these receipts and figure out what that credit card charge was for. And I was like, this is not the language that I want to speak.
Yeah,
And I am tired of this and this is overwhelming and I don't want to be in this position next year. So I'm going to find somebody to do something about that. And I found an amazing bookkeeper and she's the best money I spend every month, to be
yep,
honest. Like it is life changing. We have a budget. I know where my money is. I know where it's going and when it's coming in. And I am obsessed with telling everyone that they need, if that is not the language they speak, they need to outsource that because it will change your
totally. Yeah.
yeah.
Makes me think of like what I tell our team a lot about our business is I say, if we as a group can find an item that someone wants to buy and we can price it properly and we can order it and deliver it on time, that is great. And that is what our business is built on. but that is also something that 100 companies in this city probably can do. And I think businesses are the same. Nobody gets excited about talking about how are you handling your accounting, how are you handling your HR, how are you handling, but those things are table stakes. Like if you don't have that stuff in place and have a good person or company or whatever it is helping you, and doing an excellent job at that, then you don't get the opportunity to do the other work. It's you run out of money, you don't get to help anybody. I mean, that's
That's
just the
it.
way it goes.
That's right.
So yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'll be very interested to see how that develops, and also interested in just us kind of talking and maybe sharing some notes. So we're up against time. I want to just tell people how they can connect with you.
Thank you. Yeah. My website, like you mentioned, is just my brand name here, BonnieKnowsBreast.com. I'm on all the socials, and my email is just hello@BonnieKnowsBreast.com. So clients can book directly online. They don't have to connect with any human to do that. I get a lot of appointments scheduled in the middle of the night when people are struggling. So I wake up in the morning and have all these messages showing that I have appointments scheduled. So that's how people can schedule either, in-person lactation help or classes, or find out more about all the different things we talked about with the pump bar and Afterglow and my speaking opportunities and all of that.
The handle on social is Bonnie Knows Breast, most likely, I assume.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome, Bonnie. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate
You.
your time.
And yeah,
I know you're
this is
busy. It's good to see you. I know you haven't been feeling well lately, so I'm glad that we were able to get it in.
I'm glad to be a little better. I'm still a little hoarse, I think. So sorry for that. But yeah, I'm feeling better, and I'm glad to be hanging out with you today and talking about this because it's fun, and it's important because, like you said, we're small business owners, and we just like need a time to build community with each other, and know how we can support each other too. That's so important.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here. For those that want to check out other episodes of the Brand Herald, go to it's just simple. It's thebrandherald.com. You can see Bonnie's episode will post soon, and there's plenty of others before that. And for those that listen, we appreciate your time. So, Bonnie, thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Sounds good.